She printed exactly the same page as the presentation.
We could call the meeting to order.
Capital
The Capital Committee for October 22nd or 26th. First item is approval of the minutes from the 19th. Everyone have a chance to look those over? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Sorry.
Yes, Peter.
Nat, on page 5, do you want it to say doesn't want to volunteer but wants to be part of?
I saw that, and I didn't even really know what to say. It isn't exactly what I said, but I don't want to get too technical with this stuff. I mean, I was making like a point of, I don't have any time, but I'll do it thing like so it's fine. I mean, you can.
That's what I heard.
Leave it like that is okay. I don't think anybody's racing to the computer at home to read the minutes.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're here today for the overview of 2018 police, fire, and IT capital requests. And I guess we'll just go in that order. I think this includes Marine? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Chief, if you want to, you're welcome to join us or stay over there if you want. Either one. Okay.
Sit right here if
Sure.
you're comfortable.
Sure.
Our only thing for 2018 is a Motorola radio system upgrade. The current public safety radio network, which actually covers all of Nantucket, all town departments, everything. If you remember, we got it back in, I think it was 2006 is when we originally purchased the system at town meeting, and then it was not installed until this building was functional in 2011. But the technology in it is going out of warranty, or not warranty, but support, and they need to upgrade all of the basic computer components and software of the system in order to for them to provide support for the system. We proposed a couple different things. The base price is about $930,000 to cover it. There are some lease options that Brian is exploring over a 5, 7, and 10-year project, but the lifespan of this equipment, useful life, is 10 years, which is right where this is at, this system right now.
Chief, one question.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Page 19, optional pricing. Is there anything in that menu that makes sense
That's on page 19.
in the Motorola presentation?
It's their 5.1.2 on the left-hand margin.
Yeah, I have no idea what that even is. I think what that is the SUA. I think that is the support unit system. Like they have a big command center at Schaumburg that it almost looks like something out of Star Wars, where they monitor all of these public safety networks throughout the country. And if something goes down component-wise, it comes up on their system, their shows. And I think those are the prices if we want that service. We have never used that service in the 10 years we've had it. We had it, I think we had it the first couple of years that the system was up and running, but we never used it. We have our own monitors here. The dispatch center downstairs is set up with three areas. One of them is a master console that has all of the same monitor capability and everything on it. It literally, if a component goes bad in this system, it brings a picture up of the component with a big red X over the part that's bad. It's that simple. So I don't think that's something that we use. I don't know how that impacts that overall price though, but I'm pretty sure that the deputy chief, when he worked out this, did include that service or intend for us to get that service.
Chief, is there any costs with additional training on this new system, or is this it's a next step up? Same.
It is a higher level service. I think it's like 7 versions newer than what we currently have. So there will be a little bit of training that's involved, but that's included in the price, and that would be mostly just monitoring and how to use the an It's set up so if we have a component go bad at Pulpus Power Tower, for instance, and it's a key component, we can bypass it and use one at the water tower out on Neil Point or the other water tower. So it's just a little bit of training like that probably. But there will be absolutely no difference as far as the users in the field, the firefighters, the police officers, the DPW workers. They don't even change equipment, same equipment they got now. It's just the people who manage the system that will need the training.
So you're thinking maybe every 10 years we might need to take a look at this?
And
About,
we know every 10
Yeah.
years we'll need to take a look at this.
and is this all encompassing, or like in 4 years there'll be any other components we might need to
Well,
consider?
I mean, that's always a possibility, because this doesn't include any of the RF equipment, any of the radio frequency transmitters, anything like that. Those usually have a useful life of 20, 30, 40 years. The old system, I think, was close to 40 years old when we got rid of it. This is the computer support systems on it, and probably 80% of this system is computerized or PC-based now. You don't have a lot of other equipment except for one transmitter at Pulpus Tower, one at, there's 3 transmitters total at each water tower, and then what do they call that, a little tube device that's for the antennas, the tube antennas. So there probably will be some in the next 10 years that need to be replaced component-wise, but I think it'll all be in the same package. This should have been, we should have had this in place when we bought the system to begin with. Nobody told us about this, literally how this works going forward, and we're learning, and so we're kind of behind the 8 ball putting it in place. I think we'll see it for the future. You'll see it spread out a little bit more.
Peter?
More a question for accounting. Is it fair that it's all capitalized under the police department and not spread amongst the departments that would utilize this
I don't
system?
think it really matters
Yeah.
if the general fund's the general
Okay.
fund.
And my other question is, I'm sure Brian is probably looking at the leasing relevant to an expense because that wouldn't be a capitalized item. And if the life expectancy, chief, on the lease they're looking at is maybe a 7-year out, is that something that could be digested in the chief's operating budget? Is that what your unfair question now?
Probably not. I mean, we try to like to take it out so that when we're looking at the budget year to year,
Yeah.
and try and make those projected items sticking out.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Richard?
Just a question for the chair. Are we looking at just 2018, or are we supposed to be looking at a 10-year plan?
Well, I think with some of the others, we've looked at some of the other items on that 10-year plan.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, our agenda just says 2018.
okay,
Some of the other departments, I think Kara went into a little bit on extended years.
okay. And are we happy with 1-year lookup?
I mean, I'm content if we have,
And I could give you just a real quick brief on what we have in 10 years.
Can I get some questions?
you can, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
Chief, maybe after the questioning, if we could do that, that'd be great. Stephen?
Chief, good morning. Thanks for coming in. I've got some questions. They're probably going to be technical. I don't know if it's going to be the best use of our time to go through them all now, or maybe when I happen to be the kind of Capcom committee member assigned to the police department review. We're going to go out, work with the departments and get an idea. Libby probably had mentioned this to you all. We kind of come to the determination that we need to be able to advocate whatever determinations we make, and in order to advocate them, we need to be able to justify them. And for me, what that means is, kind of drilling down into details so that if we're here, when we're here at our deliberations, I can very quickly and easily turn around and be, not the expert, but our expert. And also be able to do so at the FinCom, because we think that will be in the town's best interest for the departments. So with that said, do you, some questions on, we had a question about the 2-year SUA, and it appears that they're carrying a line item in the 5.11 pricing summary for 2 years, but then they provide an optional summary, optional pricing for 2 years being, presumably in the 5.11, the 2-year SUA 2 is 18-19, but then they provide it down below. So that, again, that would probably be something I'd want to review just to see what are they saying. You know, probably a lot of these are going to be simple, quick, easy answers, but I think they should be asked because when they're picked up later on, we need to have answers. I would like to, just a curiosity, is this, do you know, happen to know if this is the phase 1 system, the Astro 25 phase 1, or the phase 2? The phase 2 is the TDMA, which is, it's the more advanced one. It allows you to do texting and.
It is the TDM.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious about that. There's other questions I have about that, but I won't put you through it. I think the only other thing I would like to see before I visit is whomever I'm visiting with. Again, just keeping some perspective here, we've got basically what works out to be some super great, highly necessary, very useful software and design architecture for platforms and communication. However, if you're just somebody who's on the street and you look through this, you see 6 workstations and 7 multiprocessor communication network platforms, which is the 8000 series gateway, for basically $1 million. So what I would like in order to be able to go through this and then advocate is a line item breakdown of the pricing. They provide a summary. And I'm not looking for, you know, each nut and each bolt. I'm not asking that. I don't think it would be appropriate. I'm just looking for per category. They've got the 44,000 workstations. They've got the 8,000 gateways. Those being the model numbers. Basically, how many and how much, and, you know, a breakdown of this is accessory equipment and a list of it, and this is how much, just so we can get a handle on it in discussions. I don't think anything will come of that level of detail other than, again, my being able to utilize it for the benefit of the town.
Right. This isn't a system where you can go out and say, well, we don't want to pay for the Motorola
Yeah, I'm not looking.
PC.
Yeah,
You can get a Dell cheaper and stuff. This is all proprietary equipment.
Yeah.
It is their equipment or no equipment.
yeah, and
on this.
And I understand that. I've done, you know, I think part of my responsibility is do research so that I'm not asking you questions that are just, you know, so I thank you for pointing that out. I think it's important for the group to understand that too. You know, this is a package system. The town has invested in a package system with this provider, with their technology. It happens to be a technology that's utilized in a lot of very critical environments in cities. And it's been used, you know, very successfully. It's highly adaptable. It's been used in the Boston Marathon situation. It's been used in Katrina where power went out. It's a highly worthwhile system. I'm not looking to debate that or question that. I just want to be able to drill down a little bit. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief?
Just, Chief, I look at this as just, you gotta buy a new phone and it isn't the same one you had 3 years before. So my simple question is, what if you skipped a generation? Like, in other words, the life cycle of this system, the life cycle of the system that we have. I don't know if it means, I think the term life cycle is more of technological life cycle than it is that it's junk or broken or doesn't work. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like just my simple question is, keeping up with the stuff that's available, do other municipalities, do you run into, whether it's a fancy, you know, whether you're in a big city situation or you're in a small town or you have adjoining towns that assist you? I think that being out here is a little different. It's out of your own city or town, however you want to look at it. And the seasonality of Nantucket, I would assume, plays a huge role in this need for keeping up with everything. Is that a fair statement?
I'm not sure where you're going.
Well, no, I mean, we go from 15,000 to 60. That's not typical of many places. You know what I mean? So, like, if we left it alone for another cycle, let's say, to save $1 million, and we're going to spend it in
Well,
25. I'm just trying to make for a guy that grew up with a piece of paper in the stairway with the numbers on it back in the day, that lasted like for 70 years, so that's why I'm asking.
when we purchased this system in 2006,
Yeah.
it was, I don't remember what the version number is 16.7 or something like that. Okay, we actually purchased a 16.3 system.
Right.
But because it didn't get installed until 2011,
It was already kind of,
they didn't have 16.3s anymore. Now they were at 16.7. They gave us the 16.7 system without any increase in price because they guaranteed the price until our new facility got built. And because we had that delay with the fire department part for a while there, the system got delayed, and that Motorola honored their contract for the price. We ended up with a 16.7 system, which at the time was what they were selling. They weren't selling 16.3. Now they're at 16.12 or something like that. So, you know, what happens after this year is they no longer support the 16.7. Parts go wrong, software gets corrupted, things go bad on the system, and we have to get it repaired. But after this year, they won't repair that anymore. There won't be any repair left. Then we'll be in a mission critical problem.
Yep.
This is kind of the lifestyle where, you know, back in the old system we had where it was all analog, it was, you know, there was nothing computer about it. The most advanced part about it was the LED digital displays on the channel readouts.
Yeah.
It was pretty simple. They could replace a part, somebody could build a part that would fit in there. But it was constantly, it had like 70-some% island coverage. It was probably 90% reliable, you know, because parts would go bad. This system has virtually been 100% reliable since the day we got it. And we have not found, that I'm aware of, none of the users of this system have found anywhere in this island, including Tuckernuck, where it's not usable, where they can't get coverage, which is a remarkable feat. So, you know, I don't think it's a question of picking the silver, gold, or platinum version. It's a question of picking what's the current production version that they have, and that's what this project will take us to the next level. Now, what would have happened had we started this program after we installed the new one was there would have been gradual upgrades as we go along, and I think this proposal includes some of that. Every year there would have been upgrades to the next version of the system, and we never would have faced this, hey, you're at the end of life, you know, you either fix it or you're out of business type thing in the future. Which I think when you talk to the deputy chief, who will be the guy that you'll talk to about this system, he'll be able to explain that in more detail to you as to how this is going to work going forward.
You just answered a good question no one asked, but that was actually,
Yeah.
I'm set. That's good. Yeah.
Peter, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
it was answered.
One other question, kind of keying off of what Ned said, it made me think of it. This system, I presume, works with I understand a lot of police departments work with Windows 7 platform still because it's the best for what you do with the technology that is out there. This system, I presume, works with Windows 7.
No, I don't think it does.
No?
Yeah, that I don't know the answer to, but I don't believe it does.
Okay, so I guess I kind of want to understand how that works, how that will work with putting this system in, and then you have other systems that are.
Well, we don't. This system doesn't integrate with the other systems we have in the department. They're total standalone components. It's totally on its own.
Okay.
You know, our records management and CAD system are not connected directly to this system.
Even better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chief, I know you have a few items in the out years. Could you just, we have some, well, the stuff you guys filled in, if you could maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, some of the, and you know, the out year thing has been a real tough one to get our arms around, especially on the marine side. We're, for instance, one of the things that's coming up, last year we had funding that was put in for the dredging plan. Well, once that project is done, which Dave is working on now, and we actually have a plan, and we have a sand amounts that are going to need to be dredged. There's going to be an amount needed to be put in the budget every year to accomplish that dredging, and most likely it's going to be a capital item. every year, so we don't know what it is now. So, you know, we talked with Brian about, well, should we put 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, $500,000? We have no idea, you know, what amount it's gonna be. And so there, you'll see a significant change on that going forward, and that's gonna be a dredging maintenance plan for 10 years?
Island-wide.
Yeah, island-wide, that'll go in there. Another thing we have, out there is we got, 2019, or 2020, excuse me, we got the harbor master's office. That's just, that was just throw it at the paper and see where it sticks type thing. We've got a building that the harbor master occupies currently that is in desperate need of to be tore down and rebuilt. The question is, the town is kind of debating as to what's the best facility, the use of all of our facilities. You know, there's been a thought that the finance department will eventually move out of 37 Washington Street and go to town, wherever that is, or out wherever a new municipal building may ultimately be. And then there would be looking at rehabbing that building into a facility for the harbor master. Now, there's some people that, and I'm one of them, who is rather dubious about that strategy, because I don't think they've really estimated the cost correctly on what it will take to build a complete bathroom and shower system in a building that has a slab. You know, it's not gonna be cheap, and you're gonna have a rehab building at the end of the day. And plus, it's gonna be much more difficult, and Dave can tell you, because he did it for a while. It's not that easy to manage that town pier when you're way over there at 37 Washington Street. It's hard to keep an eye on what's happening there. But it needs to be done. The women's bathroom is literally ready to collapse in that structure right now. The floor, we've got it reinforced with some steel sheets and plywood and things.
5 seconds of history on that building. It was built by the DPW in 1986. Okay, and it's been renovated and rehabbed so many times. Grant money, town money. It's just deteriorating. It's just rotting in place. So and as far as the law, well, I say the water. As far as the finance department building, there again, that building's been reconstituted, reconstructed, rebuilt 4 different times. So remember, it was a laundromat, and you know,
So, but
it's evolved into what it is today.
But our point on it is, there's gonna have to be a decision happen before we have to, you know, we're getting to the point where we may not be able to offer, restroom facilities to the boating public, and, the cruisers that come in there on the on the cruise ships and things like that. And then, in 2019, we'd like to get moving forward with, there's, 2 acres of land that were set aside out by the, on Shadbush Road, I believe it is, industrial park, where there was the community sailing has a strip of ground, and that they work out of. Right next to that are 2 acres that were originally slated to, in the discussions for the Marine Department to use for storage of equipment, put up a little building to work on their boats, things like that. Right now, we work out of 2 fairgrounds there in that public parking lot, which is, you know, not convenient for a lot of reasons. It's convenient for here because it's right there, but all of our equipment is out in the open there. It's exposed to people who may be wanting to go through and find pieces of a boat that they might need, things like that. This ground out there, we got it cleared, but now we need to start putting some money into some infrastructure improvements, fencing, a small septic system, metal building, which we have an opportunity through another property deal for a private donation to build us a building out there, but it is tied into that Coast Guard property out at the Loran station. Basically, if we can, once we get the transfer of that Loran property to the town completed, that far out building that is full of asbestos and other materials that we used for storage before we built this building, if that building's tore down, there's some wealthy residents up on the bluff of Tom Nevers that will build us a new building in return, because it opens their view, and, you know, we think it's a workable thing. But it's something that needs to move forward. As time marches on, prices go up, and people get less reluctant to make that kind of gesture. So we threw it in for 2019 Also, right now, we use a residential property for Marine Department storage out of Orkawa. We have a dorm out there for our, it's a house called a dorm. It's a house that can hold, what, 12 people, something like that. For lifeguards, it's also where we store all the buoys, all the chain, all the lifeguard equipment, and stuff like that. Right next to it this last year was a great big, nice, beautiful home built. And somebody told them, we don't know who it was, somebody told them that the town was gonna get rid of that property and it would all be good. Well, nobody told us about that, but in any event, these people are not happy. They got this great big multi-million-dollar house, and right in their backyard is all this marine equipment that right now stinks really bad. Got pulled out of the water. But again, that's the kind of thing we shouldn't be doing in a residential neighborhood as a town anyway. So this is a facility that will be long-term for the harbor master to conduct their business out there, and it's in the commercial area, and et cetera, et cetera.
Just a quick question, what is the 240 buy you?
That's mostly site work and possibly, at last year's cost, a metal building if we couldn't get the private donors to pay for it. But it's some site work, it needs a little bit of leveling, it's been cleared, it needs fencing, and I think the fencing probably $8,000 to $12,000, something like that. It needs septic system because we'd want to have since it's out there in the middle of nowhere, most likely we'd like to, rather than porta potties, we'd like to have a small bathroom in the office out there, that kind of thing. There's been some talk about possibility of putting a dorm building up for lifeguards out there. I think that's a lot more very expensive proposition because you're talking about now a major septic system. You're talking about, things like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a metal building with a small corner office in it and maybe a bathroom where marine people can do their work. And stuff.
Peter?
But, Bill, shouldn't we be thinking about dormitories for staff members?
We should, but I'm not sure that out in the industrial area is the right place to do it. Dormitories need to be built someplace where they got access to sewer, because otherwise, you're really gonna limit yourself, because it's all done by bedrooms and occupancy. You're gonna have a huge system for
2 months a year.
Yeah, for 2 months a year to build a dorm. Right now, that's kind of one of the limiting things. One of the things we could do is rehab the Loran station out there where we keep patrol officers. That building's gonna need some work at some point. But to do a major rehab on it's gonna really significantly alter the amount of people we put into it because it's on a septic system. When they built the sewer out there, they wouldn't let it go down to that building. Even though it's pretty close, but they wouldn't let it go down there. We need to really look at properties that have access to sewer and stuff to build dormitories, to make it worthwhile.
So I would think, just if I could, more for management, we as a town should be collectively looking at, and forget about the departmentalize, just looking at employee, whether it be seasonal and or year-round housing. Let's start becoming part of the solution and not continually pushing the problem under the rug. If you don't have employees and they're not living in quarters that any of us wouldn't live in, then how can we expect to hire people, train them, and keep them if we're putting them in, crawl spaces and tents and people's couches and sleeping bags?
Yeah.
It's the gorilla that's in all of our offices and departments. So
See, I personally think it's two separate discussions, because you're absolutely right.
seasonal year-round.
Yep.
I agree.
Because we're at the point now where basically our lifeguard program is limited seriously by the number of people we can house. Now, we've put an effort together to recruit the locals. And this year, I think we had close to 10, 12 local people that because we worked through the high school, but they were high school kids. And, and that's kind of a finite number you're gonna get to, and that's, you tap the swim team, you do things like that. All the others come from off island, and you gotta have a place to house them. And every year, there's somebody comes up with, why don't we guard this beach? There's more people on this beach than that beach, or this beach has daycare kids go to it. And you're right. But we don't have people, we've got the people that are interested in the job, we just don't have anywhere to put them. So the number of lifeguards we hire is significantly dictated each year by the amount of bedrooms we have to put them in, and the amount of local kids we can get. So we need to get that, we need to look at each program, we need to figure out, we need to get some dormitory space. You know, dormitory like at the Lorenz, one room, common bathroom, common kitchen, one bedroom is all it is. You know, and we can put two in some bedrooms if they're a certain size, but, you know, that's the kind of thing, but you're not gonna have year-round full-time staff live in something like that. You know, they get tired of that when they're about 26, 27 years old, they don't like living like they're in college anymore. Now they want, you know, a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, a living room, and, you know, a place to park their car.
Jim?
Just to your point, there's a work group that's been looking at affordable housing and employee housing on potentially on this site at Six Fairgrounds. They've been working on it for about a year, at least a year. And they're just about ready to send out an RFQ to identify potential developers. And a component of that are 2 dormitories. So just
So the only word that scares me there is developer. That's just
well, I
me.
shouldn't say developer. I mean, I don't know. You know, it's someone who's going to make suggestions on how to do that. It's not within the wherewithal of the town to develop affordable housing. It's a very complex.
No, understood. I mean, as
financing,
an
tax.
individual operator on the island, we've grown our employee base by 40% in 10 years. And the only way we could do that is hire locals. So we went from 2 locals out of 70, now we have 45 locals out of 120. And the only way you could do it is hire on island, people who already had a bed or a house or something to live in, because we maximized our own housing 10 years ago. And that's why we have to build a new one. And we're building a new one that has apartments within, so it is for senior people, not for the communal 3 in a bedroom, 2 in a bedroom. Because yes, you do have to provide something that a person who's 40, 60, 30 years old to live in with a wife and child or husband and whatnot.
So let me just clarify that there will be 2 components. One is affordable housing, might be about 62 units. That's, and then
Which is this area.
and then the second is town maybe owned 2 dormitories. It'd be kind of 2 separate projects, and so the term developer is kind of an overarching term.
Interested party.
Any other questions for Chief Pittman?
Chief, I'm just interested in the out years. So you've got another $1 million for an upgrade to the system that you're proposing. That's out in 2025. What other big ticket items will you have? Looking down the road.
The only other for Marine, we've got I can't remember the year, I was just looking to see what it was. We put $150,000, 2021 or 2022, something like that, for a new patrol boat to replace P1 that is down at the main harbor. That's a metal boat. Now, that, you know, somebody, we were asked to put a price tag on that. Well, it depends on what the needs of the town are at the time. You know, one thing that $150,000 will pay for will probably be a good rehab on that existing vessel, which we've been doing the last few years. If the town wanted to upgrade its capacity, like buy a vessel that's more suitable for firefighting, for instance, things like that, now you're talking $1 million and stuff. So we haven't had that kind of analysis done yet to figure out what the best option is for the town. But just to maintain where we're at today, we estimate that that vessel will be needing either a major rehab, overhaul and rehab, and or a hull replacement by that year. And that's it right now. The other major thing was that is to be debated is the ongoing maintenance of the town pier. There's kind of a debate as to whether it should be in our maintenance operating budget or in capital budget. There's some replacement, part of the ongoing maintenance will call for periodic replacement of piling. 50,000 or less each year. Well, we didn't put it into capital because we looked at it as a maintenance, and we were told the other day that if it's 50,000, then it's considered a capital item. So we gotta try to keep it under 50,000. So, I'm like, maybe we should just put it in every year for 50,000 in capital. But the idea is that to keep the pier up in workable condition. When it was rebuilt after the storm, it was rebuilt to existing condition prior to the storm. It wasn't improved at all, although some new pilings obviously would give you some improvement, but we need to put our annual replace 3 or 4 of the pilings, replace some of the bracing, replace some of the decking every so often to keep it so that in 10 years it's just as sturdy, just as strong as it is today. Okay.
But for the police department, do you see any big ticket items?
No, just the maintenance on the facility thing, and that's going to be covered by the facilities maintenance or people.
Thank you.
But if you're looking for that, for the most part, you're looking at probably close to 50,000 every 5 or 6 years for painting, and probably in another 15, 20 years, you're probably looking at a roof replacement, shingling, things like that. But pretty much that's it on this. There's really no capital items that we deal with in the police department that haven't been replaced that will be needed in the next 10 years that I'm aware of.
Chief, what about the radios, later upgrades compatible for the vehicles, the mobile command post and so on and so forth? Will that come out of operating?
Yeah, that comes out of operating for the most part, and most of those we can upgrade as we go along as things get damaged, and we'll send them off now, and generally when we get them back, they're up. They've been, most of the time what happens when a radio gets broken down, we pay $5,000 a piece for those things. We send them off for $350 to get a brand new radio back. So it's kind of an ongoing upgrading program as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Matt?
Chief, there's a lot of, I guess I would say, not obvious decisions, like the 37 Washington. I look at 37 now as 39 and 37 because we own 39.
Yeah.
We had this discussion last year about the whole 20 South Water, all mixed into this comment. It's all kind of all mixed together, like housing. It's sort of okay, we could do this if we do this. It's a bunch of moving parts. And, I've run under more houses than probably anyone combined in this room. And I'm going to tell you something. I'll bet you money the reason that building's rotten out, built only in 1986,
Which building?
the Harbor
The
Master
Marine-
thing,
Marine?
whatever, yeah. 86, I figured you. It's probably got insulation in the floor. Stupid, terrible building code nightmare. Ruining buildings every day. Right now, houses are falling down because of this. There's one on Goldfinch. They had to tear it down. But yet we got 100-year-old buildings and 200-year-old buildings that are fine.
Yep.
That's because they're not ruined by the building code. Now we have different codes that actually are the right thing if it's done right. So I guess my point is when we start talking about gotta tear it down, it's only on a slab. Slabs don't go bad. You gotta talk about FEMA now. If we rebuild all this stuff, how high is it gonna have to be thanks to Al Gore winning and we never even voted? So what are we doing with that? I mean, that's gonna cost a lot of money. Steel, reinforced, driven into the ground. I mean, it's gonna be complicated. I think this is more of a board of selectmen sort of discussion to what we're doing with these properties. We've got all this land now. We did a great thing with 39 with the swap that happened and all these different things, but we can't, I don't think we should be, this group deciding that. I think it's more of like, we could do it, it's like sort of like A, B, C plan kind of thing, not so much, oh, this is what we want to do. I don't really have a problem with 2 or 3 different ideas. It's just that it's bigger than just a budget item, in my opinion. okay? As far as Industry Road, how much land does the town, well, I guess I shouldn't, the town owns everything that they didn't sell, but how much land do you see the town having? I'm thinking of other stuff going on out there later down the road that is inevitable at some point.
I think there's more town land out there, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the airport versus the town, that was another question. Is there any way to use the airport, Dave, for some of this storage? Like work of arrangement with the airport, they have so much land out there. If they're gonna build another building or,
We had to describe them, but, they wanna charge us.
Yeah.
they want us to pay them.
Well, but the problem is
Yeah,
that's revenue
that's what-
generating land for them. So what we would be doing,
Yeah.
we're taking land now, the only reason this was on hold, this project wasn't done last year, was because there was a RFP that went out that had something to do with the fuel tanks, the fuel farm.
Yeah.
There was a possibility that that land was gonna be integral to that
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
Okay, as it turned out, it wasn't.
Yeah, I
Okay,
understand
that's
that.
why we had done the clearing.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go up with the fencing, and we had to put it all on hold because they said, wait a minute, there may be an issue with, island gas, or whoever
Yeah,
had the.
no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and now that that's all done and resolved,
Yeah.
and this is now left alone, now we can move forward.
And just,
with that.
like, when you talk about two fairgrounds, and we're sort of scattered around here, I mean, okay, that's true, but we haven't really made a decision. I mean, like what Jim just said, took 10 years to figure out what we're doing with that part of the property, theoretically. So, I look at this, I don't like to get into the super technical, I look at it sort of a 100-year way of looking at things. Whatever we do now with new buildings is sort of it, in my opinion. I don't like to look at things with 10 years life and 20 years life like that. Whatever we do with the Washington Street scenario is it, in my opinion. Whatever we do at 20 Water Street is it, in my opinion. So, because buoys have no place to go, some of these all this equipment, we have so much stuff, Dave. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, we do. And so it goes back to Kara's conversation last week here is, where are we really going to go with all this? Like, where are we putting it? It's all got to go undercover. We never use it until we need it. And then it's, you know what I mean? I agree with all that. I'm totally in favor of covering everything. It's just, is it going to be it? Is that the place we really want it to go? Is it too far away? I know, the forever thing. And instead of like, well, we're just going to throw up a building over here because we got the land.
Well, but let me give you an example of that.
Yeah.
Okay. The whole project originally was to put a building, this metal building over here in the two fairgrounds parking lot that is now.
I know what you're going to say, and I was going to bring that up so you didn't
And,
blow me up on that
and
one.
so, that was our working area. That lot is
Yeah.
where the Marine Department, the Police Department, everybody did their work. The town departments parked their vehicles at night, things like that. Had a fence, although we never shut the fence because
Yeah.
we didn't really need to.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was fenced in and nobody really went back there. Now, they made it into a park and ride lot. 'Cause
Yep.
somebody said, hey, somebody walked out there in February and said, there's nobody here. We can use this.
Oh.
Okay, well, wait a minute, let's
The location.
so we had to then figure out where to put all of the stuff that we need to do our job. So
Yeah.
knowing that we had this fire station project coming, we cleared that land behind there. We made another lot. That lot wasn't even done yet, and there were people standing there saying, this is gonna be a great extension for the park and ride lot.
Better than Tom Nevers.
Which it may be, but we needed a place to put our stuff. Now,
Yeah.
that's not fenced, and we had damage to our vehicles this summer. There were, how many of your trailers had flat tires and stuff? People mess with this stuff. They get into the trailers and take stuff. It's not secure. It needs to be secured.
Well-
And, because everybody, they need some absorbent for their boat bilges. Guess what? They go to the trailer that's got pollution response stuff on it, and they take whatever they want out of it. A lock doesn't stop them. They break it. And so we need stuff. But anyway, we need a good secure location that we can put this stuff. This building needs to have a secure area when it's ultimately said and done, the fire station, in order to, you know, it's not like we can just open this up and make this a joint public or parking and neighborhood parking. It needs to have a secure area. We got stuff in here that people can't be around, you know, and there are people that have different ideas on Nantucket than ordinary people, I would just say.
I kind of knew that you were going to get into that, and this is why this group can't make decisions, in my opinion, with big ticket stuff. Like the radio stuff, all in favor, say aye to me. You answered all the questions I needed. I don't get into too much technicality with that. I understand why you have to do it. But this stuff is different. I mean, Two Fairgrounds is mid-island, you know, it's perfect spot for the park and ride. Or some kind of entity like that. But we have a lot of land across the street that, again, another entity of the town that doesn't have to get the same approval to do stuff, just like the airport, is sort of planning a lot of stuff over there that, personally, I think is wrong. Okay? There's a lot of useful stuff over there, buildings and land, and that could be used for some of this stuff, or a park and ride in a better spot. But that's why this stuff's so complicated. And I just don't like, it's just difficult to make these decisions. So, the security issue out in the middle of nowhere, by the way, I think you should have somebody living out there, like a person, not like a housing. I'm talking about like a secure, you know, somebody that, you know, we've talked about that for years out at the plant.
Actually, Community Sailing is putting together a proposal to build some housing out there, some dormitories.
Yeah.
And they've approached the police department about being part of it, so it would be.
So it's possible,
yeah.
okay. All right, sorry to be so.
No problem, I
lengthy, just-
understand. It's complicated questions, and there's a lot of needs. We all understand. I think part of the issue is some of the needs we're having today never have been addressed. You know, like, has anybody thought of what's gonna happen to this building in 80, 100 years when it needs to be replaced? Because it will need to be replaced,
I
there's no doubt
disagree.
about it. What are you gonna do? There's only two possibilities. If you got no land left, which I don't see there will be a lot of land in 100 years left to build on, then you had better have accounted for that now. Because new building, you might have to build right behind this one or in front of this one while you're still in this one. Because you can't tear it down and shut down your police and fire stations while you're building a new building. And, you know, it's okay when you can go off to another piece of land and build another building and then figure out what you're going to do with this one. But in 100 years, are we really going to be able to do that? Or are we going to have to say that parking lot or the land behind this building is where we need to build the next building, and then this becomes the parking lot? You know, it's just some thoughts. Those are the kinds of things that need to go into those decisions, in my opinion.
And Academy Hill's still there. I don't want to sound like Matt-Fee 100%, but this is, I agree with some of the things he says about these things. Certain buildings built to last indefinitely, and other buildings, I don't like to give it a date, you know what I mean? But the town building, when I watched that guy that did the study thing last year stand up and say something that I'm telling you, I wish I had it on tape. Well, the roof's asbestos. It doesn't have to be replaced. You know, we went from asbestos, it's got to be replaced, to, well, it'll last forever. Right? It's interesting discussion when somebody says that. So,
Hopefully it will last for a long time.
no, but what I mean is when you hear the word asbestos, you think automatically bad, but actually it's like slate. It's like stone. It's not going to have to be replaced. So I don't think this building's going to have to be replaced. It's the way they're built. The Empire State Building isn't getting exploded and torn down tomorrow. It's built in 1935 or whatever. So it's complicated. I'm just saying whatever move we make, whether it's the Marine Department lady thing, whether it's the Finance Department thing, IT storage stuff isn't going to be an issue that I know is coming because of the way it has to be stored and all that. It needs to be a 100-year answer, not a 20, it's worn out, and just put it in the budget. I hate that. Certain things shouldn't be like that. You know, it's not a vehicle. You know what I mean? But I totally agree with you. with this. I just like it to be structured in a way where we're just not saying something built in 1986 is junk. It's because of the way it was built in 1986. It isn't because it's 1986. That's not like yesterday. So anyway, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, but we don't have time. We gotta move along.
If you have a question?
Well, no, I just follow up on some of the statements. I think, one, Chief, if you believe there's a shared storage may be part of the solution for the fire department and the police department and Marine, for anything here that the Marine does, as opposed to industry yard. I don't know what your process is or the process with the finance department, but I would encourage you to get it in the out years, because even a placeholder, because that will start to drive discussion. And it seems like, rounding back to the point of discussion that now is making, $240,000 for the industry road yard isn't really the topic of discussion. Compared to the 930 for the radio systems, clearly there's a difference there. My thoughts, but in terms of the industry road, the layup yard, it's part of a bigger discussion. That bigger discussion, you mentioned the community sailing housing. Where is that? They're proposed
Right out there.
They have a
Okay.
lease out there.
So the concern I would have is for something like that, and this goes to the bigger picture discussion. It goes to the 100-year build, but it also goes to the 100-year vision. Is you've got recruitment, retention, and when I mean retention, I mean the returns, because anyone who manages people or crews or staff out here knows, it's an annual battle, and the more you can do, as with any organization, to cut down on having to retrain and find new people and retrain new people is a huge asset. The dollar number could probably be calculated, but in any event, that area, I think, in terms of recruitment and retention for seasonal housing, year-round being a separate topic. You also, I would caution the town and you as department heads, because you're involved in the discussion at the onset, would be location. Because putting people out there where this speaks directly to retention, where they're in the middle of nowhere, where maybe the NRT shuttle can be directed out there, it makes it very difficult for seasonal people who are here out of college. They don't have vehicles, they might have bikes, they might be kids who are on H-2B visas, whatever it is, they may not have the resources to be coming in and out of town easily, going to the Stop and Shop easily, stocking up on groceries and so on and so forth. They're working long hours because they want to make bank. They've got college bills or whatever it happens to be. So in that 100-year vision, my suggestion would be, in terms of these facilities we're talking about, is please keep in mind location. Again, easy for someone like me to advocate and fight for that, because it makes a difference in the bottom line.
Well, I agree 100%. That's why I wouldn't suggest we put people out there in
Yeah.
the industry. That's an industrial place.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna wanna live, do we wanna put people next to a fuel tank?
Yeah.
A fuel farm, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think our focus should be where we can get the biggest bang for our buck. You get more people in those structures if it's on a sewer than you can if it's on a septic system. And so the town needs to get its maximum usability out of these structures. 39 Washington Street is a good example. The house that we use, our lifeguard program depends on that house.
Yeah.
Could the town use that property better for parking? Probably. We'd get a better bang for the buck, but we would lose 6 lifeguard slots if we lose that house right now. So we've got to get something in place so we can stop this piecemeal here, there, and everything else, And we need to know what our numbers are. We need to know I've got 40 beds. We need to know I've got this, I've got that, so that we can plan what we're going to go provide for services to the citizens every year, rather than, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens next summer.
Yeah.
See what we get.
Yeah, we're not that sleepy town, long since
We're
passed.
long past that. So, no, I agree with you on that statement 100%.
Yeah.
Industry Road is a place to store trailers and work on boats, not a place to sleep people.
And then just to follow up on that whole thing, because I think that this is correct. These are like policy decisions that need to be driven at the Board of Selectmen level. But we can't presume, and I don't think you are, on any of you, that housing over here by an interested party that's dormitory is going to solve the town's problems. It's going to solve a larger problem to some extent, to some small degree, by providing housing that's dormitory style. But it's not going to necessarily provide housing for lifeguards. So we can't, I'd suggest that we, at the Board of Selectmen level, or whomever area of discussion, whoever policy persons this is, or whoever's department is to put this stuff forward for decision makers, that these need to be factored in separately. Because just because we have a solution with dormitories doesn't mean we have a solution for example, with lifeguard housing. And I think that's just important to keep in mind, because it's not, it's easy to lose track of that in the bigger picture.
One of a good example of that is probably our most successful seasonal program that's been long-term here in the island has been the community officer program downtown. It's been consistent year to year. We've had the same number of people. We get about 100 applicants a year to be part of something that we hire 32 out of that. And it's been successful because we've got a facility dedicated to that, and it's got a defined number of beds, and we can fill the beds. The only time we've been able to get more than the 32 is if we have a local or something like that puts in for it. But to make that successful too, is you've got to manage it as part of your operation of your business. Peter will tell you, your dorms, let's say XYZ Property Management managed your dorms for you. Do you think you'd have the same issues as you got now? Like with my summer people, they live there at our pleasure. They live there as long as they're employed here. They do this. They get invited to leave. They leave the housing too. Where if they've got a contractual arrangement with a housing manager, for instance, that's a whole different animal. And and next year, am I going to be competing if we're in a dorm that is open to the first 40 applicants, whether they be DPW, lifeguard, here or there, and how can I plan what I can hire and what programs I can offer? I need to know how many beds I got and what I can house in order to put a program together that is useful for the town.
Can I follow up on
Jim,
that?
well,
Oh, I didn't see you.
A couple points. So when I first got on the board, one of my issues was the lack of a strategic plan and a strategic planning process. So we've begun that with the board, and we've identified 5 major topics. And one of them is housing, to really not to look at it both from as the town's largest employer, and many on the board think that we should be responsible to make sure that every town employee has adequate housing. That's a pretty broad comment, but maybe I'm just a little bit out there. And then secondly, housing, especially affordable housing for year-round citizens. So that's we've just begun to, we're going to start a strategic planning process in the next few months, but that's, I just let you know that is a broad topic that the Board of Selectmen is looking at, and, but it's probably.
Matt, did you want to
Yeah, I do. Just real quick. Chief brought up something that I actually was thinking about saying differently, but same idea. Okay, I agree with what you said about owning. You basically said the town needs to own its own dormitories. The town is really bad at fixing stuff. That's why we're here. All we do is fix it with just
Bad at building stuff,
click,
yeah.
bad at fixing it after it's built.
And building it.
Okay? And we talked about this with Diane last year at the school. You drive up to the back of that school, where they back up the food truck, I could keep a guy busy there for a year in a 40-foot square foot area. There is so much maintenance that hasn't been touched since the place was built. Now, if that was your own house, it would be fixed. If we're gonna go forward with all this, because I think we should, I agree with Chief on that, you can't have a private company lease, let's just say, with a dormitory situation, and all of a sudden they pull the plug and you've got like this entity that whether it's lifeguards or the police downtown thing or whatever, it doesn't matter. It could be something else. And the beach patrol people with the motorcycle things and all that. You have to have a place for these people to go. It's just like a restaurant. We're running a restaurant with seasonal help. But gotta have better maintenance. And we have to have a way to fix things without it being just throwing it down with 6-digit numbers, and that's how we fix it. You gotta do it. The steamship has the same issue. I keep bringing that up every meeting. I say something about the steamship, but it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same problem. We have the same problems as the town has. When you walk by stuff, it doesn't get fixed, and there's 100 employees, but nothing can get fixed. There has to be a system that works, and that will be something that there will be another board of selectmen working on to solve those things. But I agree that the iron is hot right now because of the land that we have, infrastructure's in. I totally agree that we need to have town housing in a large number dormitory apartment system. But who's gonna fix the stuff? It's not a steel building. It's not gonna be something that doesn't require maintenance. It's gonna be wood. It's gonna have lots of things wrong. Showers are gonna get broken. Kids make a mess. I go in these places that people live in the summer, and it's like, I mean, you're wearing stuff out. So that's all I'm saying. I'm in agreement with the whole way you're thinking, but I see more fixing problems as we move down the road. That's it. Thank you.
And if I may, Nat, and we should. I mean, you're talking where capital, what you just said is operational.
Yeah.
Maintenance on a perpetual basis. You know, I realize that we're putting in a 7,000 square foot dorm. Guess what? The cost factor of replacing the 1,000 square foot building in 7,000, I'm gonna have my operational expenses gonna go up, and I budget accordingly.
Yeah.
And it's just managing.
It's the management guys, the budget. I'm talking
It's
about
managing.
people with eyes that see
Yeah,
things that
who
need to be
manage
fixed.
and do it.
Who do it?
Who do it.
Yeah.
That's operational.
Yeah.
That's the problem in a sense, though. This capital item that we had, the $50,000 to paint this building. We knew we'd get this building painted if we put in $50,000 in capital now. We knew the building would get painted because we're gonna get it done. Because it's our building, we're here, we look at it, that's money. But now it's gonna go into a operating budget that is managed by somebody else who comes here occasionally. And he's gonna have a line item for painting of, I don't know how much. And is it gonna be our building, is it gonna be the town building, or they're gonna go out for bid and it ain't gonna be enough for the town building, so they're gonna have to cut in this building? You know, we don't know that it's gonna get done. That's the problem with centralized maintenance rather than departmental maintenance sometimes, is, you know, I know what's gonna get done here. I have no idea if it's in a common pot, if it's gonna, where that allocation's ultimately gonna be. You know, at the end of the day, I know what we argued for. We argued for $50,000 to paint the building. Okay, building maintenance, facility maintenance people get $50,000 for painting. The next thing you know, they're painting jetties, they're painting here. Oh, there's not enough left to paint the police station. You know, so put it off for another year. Now we got to replace some wood instead of just repainting. You know, now it's more expensive.
Christie?
Yeah, Jim.
So, again, what the town's done is this year, in under capital, I'm not sure we've seen it yet. I think we did. They've packaged all of those, or a bunch of those, maintenance items under one capital department
Yes,
called
they will
facilities.
become, yeah.
Called facilities or facilities
Facilities
management or
maintenance.
something. So, because exactly what what you've all said is, this really gets back to the structural budget problems the town has, which is 85% of our expenditures are salaries, wages, and benefits. And they move on based on contracts and high cost of health insurance, and they gobble up all this stuff. And there's nothing left at the end of the day. You could argue about how to address that, but so this year, a bunch of those things have been packaged together. We're going to see them. Whether that's a good management thing, I personally am not convinced. But as others said, you can't keep adding these buildings and not have another ever-increasing preventive maintenance budgets for those, just because it's new. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. Chief, thank you. Dave, thanks. All good points. I'll move on to fire. And Paul, if you want to just kind of review your request for 2018. We might have some questions on the out years, but start with that.
Probably cover all the questions in my book.
Yep.
The cost of an ambulance, we just got a new ambulance, the cost is was $270,000 for this year. We're increasing the cost by 3.5% per year, which is typical for fire truck and ambulance manufacturers. So we're requesting $279,000 for ambulance number 2 for next year. Part of that increased fee is the level of expenses, the stretcher system. They've changed the requirements for ambulance stretchers. They found that ambulances get into accidents, the stretchers break free and kill the patients. They are new requirements that require very expensive mechanical systems to hold the stretchers to the floor. So that's part of the reason for the increased cost. And the new ambulance we just got has all that in it. Any questions on the ambulance, or do you want to move on to the rest?
I have a question.
Yeah, Jim?
Just in my experience, what we used to do was we keep the box and change the chassis. And now I know there's some, code or regulatory requirements that may change over time. But is that something you've looked at?
That's something that private ambulance companies do a lot. So private ambulance, non-emergency companies, they typically do it. They'll use the boxes more than once and change up the chassis. Haven't seen that done in emergency services before. Things take
Well,
a beating
they're
when
done
you
in
go
Houston.
out.
They're done in Houston that way. Not Massachusetts, but because there are a lot of miles on them.
No, we don't put a lot of actual.
No, I'm saying in my experience, they get a lot of mileage on them.
Correct.
So the chassis goes far quicker than the box. That may not be the case here because of
We
the.
don't do many miles, but
Right.
as you know, the miles here are kind of rough. There's some rough roads, and the suspension's take a beating, and the inside gets rattled around pretty good, and it gets loosened up. In this particular case, the inside of these weren't built for the new stretcher mounting systems, so there would have to be some expensive renovations to the box to be able to mount a stretcher into it. So no, I did honestly get a price on re-chassising the ambulance we have. I think it would probably be, I can get that for you. I think it would probably be as much, and the inside of the ambulances they've got a fair amount of wear. I don't think it would be worth it personally, but I can look at that.
Was there?
Chief, I presume this is the going rate for this type of a vehicle?
Yeah, we buy them, we buy them off of regional bids. So we looked at a couple different bids, the Fire Chiefs of Massachusetts bidding system, Plymouth County bids, state bids. We ended up buying one we got off of a HGAC, Eastern Galveston Area Council bid. So
Hey,
found,
that's
we
what I'm
shot
that's the
around
one I'm talking about.
$5,000 in the rescue by buying it off of a Texas bid rather than a mass bid.
Sure.
So they're all on large group purchasing systems, so.
I don't imagine you get any value out of the trade-in, but just out of curiosity, what happens to the vehicles that are being retired?
Defense
The one we
company.
just got didn't retire an ambulance, it was a fourth ambulance, which we used to have up until 2013. And there's a bunch of reasons for having a fourth ambulance. For this particular ambulance, the ambulance trade-in will probably be, I was told, maybe $15,000 we'll get for it as a trade-in. And not a lot of value.
Okay, I was just curious,
That
thanks.
money typically goes back to the general budget, I think.
Just a quick question
Yeah.
on the ALS thing. Advanced life support, right? That's what that means? I was reading that list of stuff. This is really smart, but I just have how do you know when you need to take that one ambulance out? Like, I don't mean to sound like I would understand that, but like, the ambulance that has that on it, how do you know when you need to take it? Or is that the primary ambulance, let's say? Yeah, I'm just curious. Or are you plan on doing this over time?
Correct.
To just wait till you buy another ambulance to don't put it in the old one kind of thing? Is that kind of the
That's kind of the thing, so
Makes
ultimately,
sense.
every ambulance should be capable of performing advanced life support, that's the goal. But
Right.
The advanced life support equipment, the medication, the drugs,
Yeah.
the cardiac monitor, which is about $36,000, IV infusion pump, which is about $6,000, it adds up to $50,000 to upgrade a basic life support ambulance to an advanced life support ambulance. So, the 4 ambulances, that's $200,000 if we were asked for it all at once.
Yeah.
What we're asking for, so the ambulance we just bought in the present fiscal year, we have the money to make that ALS. So that'll be all set. We're asking for next year for one more ambulance. So the
But does the new one you buy include the ALS in it? No, it doesn't.
No,
Okay,
that's
okay.
$270,000.
That's just the ambulance.
Stretcher and an ambulance. No
Okay,
equipment.
okay.
So the equipment would be transferred off the old ambulance, and we'd have to
Add the,
add $15,000 in equipment to make it ALS.
Good.
So once this ambulance
I
is
see.
bought, we'd have 2 ambulances at advanced life support level. So, yeah, if 2 ambulances go out, then the next patient's gonna get a basic life support ambulance. Or if we know that one of the call that comes in, they say, I fell and I hurt my
you
wrist.
kinda don't take that ambulance. I got it.
Right.
No, this is smart. This is interesting. I didn't, kinda got wind of this a little bit before, with last year. I think you brought this up in the
Right.
conversation.
We do, we're talking about a year about increasing our staffing level and service level.
Yeah.
Four-year plan, this is part of it.
It was good. It was something that I don't think everyone realizes. We have more EMTs that are getting to this qualification now.
We're working really hard on it. We're negotiating with the union right this second to create the paramedic position.
Yeah.
So I think we're very close. But as soon as they agree on the paramedic position, which I think we're close, then we'll start sending them training and train current employees and then future hires will be paramedics until we reach a predetermined level.
Peter, one second. Chief, I got a quick question. Is there any way some of these costs could be used from the ambulance reserve fund?
That is where it comes from. So the advanced life support equipment comes out of the ambulance reserve fund. It's funded out of that. The ambulances are also funded out of the ambulance reserve fund. They're all funded out of that fund.
Peter?
Chief, I'd make just 2 comments. I'd rather see as an individual, all the ALS equipment be put into the price of the ambulance because there's fixed costs like the cardio unit.
Right.
Instead of all those supplies, which may equate to whatever, $10,000 worth of supplies, I'd put that under operational expense and then take that ambulance expense and increase it by 40K, whatever the math is.
Sure.
I mean, because I think capitalizing $50,000 for supplies from a gap standpoint doesn't look right to me. That's just pure optics.
Sure.
The accounting and the process for capital are independent. So what you're thinking of capital as an accounting standpoint
Yeah.
is different than the process for moving it
Okay.
out.
So if we said as a committee, I don't approve the ALS for
Yeah, I think
50,000,
it's just to,
then it goes
I
through as
think the
operation.
idea is to look at big expenses in more detail than you would on an operating level. So anything that's valued over 50,000, we really want another look at. And people
But that's
evaluate.
that's because his presentation, he's batched it. I mean, if you look at it, it goes anywhere from a cardio unit to Band-Aids.
Right.
Well, it's not, it's only advanced life support. There's no Band-Aids. There are IVs, ET tubes, and the trachea tubes.
So it's all supplies.
Yeah,
They're
it's
disposables. They get used.
a portion of them are, correct, yes.
Well, most of those things, except for the bigger units.
Bigger units, the $36,000 for the monitor and the $6,000 for the IV pump. Correct.
And I think it would behoove you in your presentation, Chief, to put down your bidding system as backup, because that gives us more indication you've done your due diligence.
Right, I don't think in your packet it's got all the prices, we don't have
Okay.
data and all the different.
I think it should be here, that way it makes us feel more comfortable
I will get that
where
to
you
you.
got that.
We've got every price on every ET tube
Perfect.
and IV and needle that make up the $50,000 when it comes to just about exactly $50,000.
As everyone here should understand, the ALS is a system that's gonna cost much more to operate, much more expensive for us to be a user in driving the ambulance. And this is a program it's not just for the faint of heart. I mean, it's a program that's gonna go forward. Everything will be. You can't have, at the end of the day, 3 ambulances that are not and 1 that is. But the goal is everything will be.
The goal is everything will be, it's the standard in the country. We're the last place left in the
Correct.
state that doesn't have ALS. And like I said, it's a significantly higher treatment level. So you get almost everything you get in the hospital, you'll get in your house before you get to the hospital, which makes a lot of difference for a lot of patients.
So we should understand that there's other departments, other committees that have already, and like the FinCom, which has already talked about this last year. So we should understand that there's a lot of moving parts.
And there is an increased cost, so the increased cost for a paramedic, they get a few percent more in their paycheck, and their certification or training every year costs about an extra $3,500 a year training every single year per person. And like I said, the equipment lasts a long time, but it's not inexpensive. On the other hand, our ambulance revenue more money gonna come in, not enough to pay for all the ALS costs and all the increased personnel, but we needed the personnel anyways, because our response times are so bad. We don't have the people to respond to the number of calls we have. So it solves two problems. It solves the service level problem and the response time problem, which is a factor of too many calls and not enough people, and overlapping calls. So it's kind of a complicated, big problem that we're trying to fix.
Jim?
Just to Peter's earlier point about capital and operating expenses, as you use those items, that, you know, you get the new ambulance, it's totally outfitted. As you use those items, do you charge those and you replenish them? Does that come out of operating expenses?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so sometimes-
Every time we take a patient in, if we used an ET tube, a couple of IVs, and a bag of saline, we typically replace those at the hospital.
yeah.
And it comes out of
My
operating
point is that when you buy an ambulance, sometimes you get it all outfitted with some things that you might call, and having bought them through that Houston-Galveston thing, you buy them all outfitted, but as they're replenished, you charge that to, that becomes a patient chargeable, but it also gets charged, the expense side, to the operating account.
So Chief, it'd be fair to characterize the ALS equipment is a line item here is really like an option for an ambulance in terms of if you were to buy a new one, you would be, you could check ALS equipment and it would be an additional amount of money. I mean,
we would get that from a separate vendor because that's all the bid too. So it's a different bid for the IV, for the cardiac monitor.
Okay.
So if we didn't get, if you chose not to approve the ALS upgrade to 50,000, then we would just buy a new ambulance and swap the equipment from the old ambulance onto the new one. And it would be a BLS ambulance. It wouldn't be capable of performing that increased service level.
Okay.
Just sort of back on, like, you know, Nantucket's the last place.
Right.
I love that, because that means so much that, you know, you've been here a couple of years now, so you get
No,
it.
I've only just over a year.
Just over a year?
I'm the new guy.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No.
I'm getting you mixed up with Brian Turner, he's been here too. So, and Roberto, a couple months. Here's the thing, right? The distance you have to go and how close we are to everything kind of changes this way things. We're not going 50 miles to get a patient. I mean, it's just how it is.
Right.
So we have a sort of a weird independence of fire truck stuff and water, you know, we have so much more fire protection now than we did 20 years ago. It's unbelievable in Nantucket.
Yes.
But on the other hand, with this stuff, you're sort of more efficient with ambulances because of the nature of the island and the distance you go. But in the, you know, and I wouldn't want you to have to tell us this because we probably wouldn't be able to do it. What are your forecasts? How many times do you really need ALS a year? You know, what is it? 10, 6? I don't know. 20? I don't know how many times it would be.
All right, so
But what I mean is that we do need to have this, even if you don't. I'm not trying to say we don't need it. I'm just trying to make a sort of a Nantucket. It's you go back up more than you go forward delivering fuel here.
Right.
Okay, you go to the next. You're backing up more than going forward in some cases. It's unbelievable.
it's a great
But other places, you're going 50 miles to the next delivery.
Sure.
And here is similar with ambulances. You can do more with one than you can in another community that might have to drive
It's
distances
Great point.
to the hospital too.
Yeah, we're not much different than Hyannis. So Hyannis fire, they're driving a shorter distance than we are.
Yeah.
And they use ALS too. They have ALS. So it's we're not really. I mean, I know we're an island and we don't drive 20. Well, we don't drive 30 or 40 miles.
No.
But it's not too much different than other communities. The big
Yeah.
difference is that when we get to the hospital, we don't always just leave. We can
That's
always
right.
stay with the patient.
Yeah.
They're short-staffed, the same as we're short-staffed. So our care starts in the home, and the new treatment protocols dictate that you get most of your treatment in the house before you even leave.
Yeah.
So if you're having a heart attack, you get your first line of cardiac medications before you even get to the hospital. And a heart attack time is heart muscle, you lose. So it starts there, and it continues all the way to the hospital, and we don't leave right away. We continue to work with the ER staff on the patient until they're able to take over. So in a way, I think you could argue that it's more important that we're trained at that level than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Jim?
So, and just to follow up on what the chief said, this isn't about the distance between the patient and the ambulance, it's about where do you want to begin the care. right now, that care, the advanced care is not begun until they get to the hospital. And if it's your family member, you want it to begin where they pick up the patient. And so that's why, so this is not one of those examples of why it's going to be last. It's really a quality of care issue to the citizens of the island.
I'm sorry, I think it's one of your questions. Percentage of calls. So typically, in our calls, we're no different. About 80% of calls are treated at the ALS level. 80% of our 1,600 calls a year would be treated at the ALS level. And I know that's surprising, but
It is.
it is. Almost everything is treated at ALS level nowadays. The other day, a while back, we treated a patient out of one of the golf courses out in Wisconsin, and she had fallen and broke her hip or displaced her hip, and she's screaming in pain every time we try to move her. So this lady had to endure horrific pain for us to load her on a stretcher and get her to the hospital. Where if we were ALS, she would have been treated laying on the grass, and she wouldn't have felt any pain all the way to the hospital. We could have moved her without her screaming or feeling any pain. So there's a huge difference.
That's good explanation. Wouldn't think of it that way as a layman. You know what I mean?
But pain management is a factor on a lot of calls nowadays, so.
Yeah. But when you look at that list, like I looked at that list last night, I was like, man, I'm getting kind of feel like I'm watching TV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you don't think about that to that level, like you just explained. That person isn't dying, but they're in a situation where I wouldn't have known. ALS
Sure. But many of them
fits into
are
that
dying.
situation.
The paramedics nowadays they can pitch your heart. So if your heart's not beating at the right rate, we can introduce electrical impulses to actually make your heart beat the rate we want it to correct things. There's about, I think there's 30 or 40 different medications that a paramedic can give.
We haven't even got into
Six,
liability.
morphine, like I said, most of the stuff that's done in the ER now is now done in the house before you even leave the house. So it's a shift. And it's going to go more that way. They're going to what they call community paramedicine, where eventually some of these communities are going definitive care in the house. So we'll treat you in your house and you won't even leave. That's down the road, but that's the way it's going.
Peter, do you have a question?
Cool.
I think a better word to use to advocate ALS is not miles, but timing,
Yeah.
Exactly.
period.
Yep.
Because 5 miles from here to downtown, or 4 miles, could take you twice as long as it could get to Wisconsin.
Yes.
Well, I was looking at 2019, the replace ambulance one. Should there also be a line item for the ALS equipment for that ambulance?
Yes, they should. Yeah, they should. I apologize.
Yep.
There's some confusion over what was in the ambulance budget and
Sure.
how much we had this year and how many ambulances we got upgrade, so that's something that needs to get reflected.
Okay.
After next year, we'll have 2 of the 4, so there's 2 more years that we need $50,000.
And if I may, that's why I mentioned I would rather see that money get locked into the price of the ambulance and just keep it steady, and then go into 3.5%.
Okay.
I think it's easier, because you're not gonna get an ambulance that's not ALS, you're gonna get an ALS based.
Right.
Boom, it costs X. And it's not a choice. Once you've made that
Once you made the commitment.
contractual commitment, that's where we're at,
I'll work with
period.
Ryan and one else to fix that.
Because I, as a patient, I'm gonna say, give me the basic.
Right, but then going forward, so 2 more ambulances will be at the higher price, and then going forward after that, they'll all be at a lower price, because we will have the equipment.
Right.
Not some periodic upgrades like radio, cardiac monitor upgrade after so many years.
So I'd request you redo those numbers, and
I will.
I think we should put it in as such.
Peter?
Yeah, I don't know if you have any idea about the, longevity or useful life of the ALS equipment, but do you foresee when you have to purchase new ambulances in 2026, 2027, that those will be obsolete, so to speak, and have to also be purchasing new ALS equipment at that point? Kind of like the radio equipment for the police department.
Sure, it's very similar, right, so the consumables, IVs, those are replaced periodically.
Right, but
Use
the
them.
36,000 in
The
the hard equipment.
$36,000 monitor, those are typically upgraded every, I'm trying to think, probably 5 or 6 years, you upgrade those.
Okay.
And you trade them in, and I don't have to find out what the upgrade fee is, but it's not $36,000, it might be $6,000, you trade that one and get an upgrade to a.
So it's more of a
the next
training
version.
program than it
It's
is
a
purchasing brand new
It's a
equipment.
long-term operating budget program, so I
Okay.
have to build that in the operating budget.
Okay, so we wouldn't see it here.
You wouldn't see it, it wouldn't be a capital expense, it'd be an operating expense.
Thank you.
too bad Dave left. There was a fire on a 32-foot regulator, I think it was last summer in the middle of the mooring field. And we have a great, patrol boat relevant to checking licenses and alarms and all that fun stuff. Have you ever thought about any sort of piece of equipment that can douse a fire that's on the water?
That, for town administration, is the responsibility of the harbor master's department. They handle that.
Have they ever?
Support them as needed.
Yeah, we've got adequate equipment for boat fires. They're, they've got pumps on the vessels.
So that's all.
That's all.
Good, good. Thank you.
Stephen?
One quick one, and it actually pertains to operating, but I'm curious, Chief, the insurance revenue you mentioned, is that a function of the increased cost for ambulance service that was, the rate went up, I think, a year or maybe less ago? That's a direct relation?
Yes.
What we're able to get from the insurance company as a result of what our rate is set at?
Right, we upgraded our rate very similar to what other communities had. We hadn't upgraded ours, I think, in 10 years or a long period of time. So we upgraded to the level that the insurance companies are willing to pay and was comparable to other communities. So because we upgraded, our BLS rate, so the rate we're getting right now is also increased. And I think we were looking at, I don't know the numbers in front of you, but $300,000 maybe extra we're going to receive just because we upped our rates to the norm.
So if we hadn't have upped our rates, we actually would have been leaving money on the table.
We were leaving money on the table
Yeah.
the last 10 years, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just
I
curious.
think there's still some money left on the table because correct me if I'm wrong, but the board decided at that time not to raise the rates to the kind of industry, the community standard.
I think we raised the BLS rates, but we didn't raise all the ALS
Right.
rates to the standard.
Right.
One or two rates they chose to leave down, and they wanted to rediscuss after we got
Right,
to the ALS.
but my
rate.
point is there's money being left on the table from
Yes.
insurance companies because they were sensitive to the price, the public reaction to the price
Yeah.
structure.
There's a huge increase in price that went up 100%. It went up a lot.
But again, it's not, it's all, I hate to say this, but large portions covered by insurance, so a personal view is they should be higher, but
I think 80% of it, I remember,
Yeah.
come from insurance companies.
usually 80/20 and then the town bills for the difference, but because you have to be careful how you say this, but they don't have the most rigorous collection process for the other 20, so.
It's
Which is
unfortunate.
pretty common, and, for those kind of things, so, because that can be expensive.
I may have missed it, but it's unfortunate if it wasn't in the paper, that, this underlying kind of aspect to the service fee, because then you could drive a whole nother discussion. It would beg the question, okay, well, we're increasing the rates because we're leaving money on the table. I would want to know how much money we're leaving on the table just because we haven't raised our rates. And then maybe a second portion, not secondary portion, but a second portion of the discussion would be whether the town worked out some type of a hardship, type of a aspect to the service fee with the billing department addressed, so that if you weren't insured or you didn't have full insurance, that there would be some kind of declining rate. It's operations,
There is,
it's
yeah,
not our
there is.
bailiwick. I was just kind of curious.
There is.
a hardship.
Is there?
When they're billed, it's stated on there, if they have a hardship, they call in, they request a form, and they'll send them out a form to fill out, and then a decision made of whether they let them off or not. And more often than not, it's not like Mr. Kelly said, we're not looking, this is mostly to come from insurance companies, we're not looking to
Yeah.
hurt people that are working lots of jobs and working hard. There's money out there that, right or wrong, insurance companies pay, and communities depend on, and if we don't take it, then some money left on the table.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on something.
Thanks, Jim.
On one of Peter's questions. I'm just curious to know, how is a boat fire facilitated? I mean, if it's the police or the marine, does your guys go out on the boat, or how does that?
Well, there's 3 vessels that are capable of responding to whatever incident out on the water. There's one in Nantucket, there's 2 in town, and then there's a 4th one that's stationed out here at 2FG that can go wherever, okay? Any of them can have, the pumps are in, what do you call them, barrels. Any of them can have, they have the pump in them, or we can even add more pumps to them. That example that Peter was talking about a couple of years ago, I was out on that one actually. The fire department actually responded with another pump of their own, and and we set up two boats went out, and instead of putting one of our pumps in it, they put their pump in it. We went out, and the Coast Guard also has the pumps on their boat, okay, and they respond to those. And the second boat, the first boat got underway with Marine Department crew, and the second boat had a police department Marine unit member on it, operating it, and the fire department crew on board, and they went out and everybody sprayed their water on the boat, okay, and foam and everything else. So it's all set up. Basically, the way that we work it is the harbor master and her staff are the primary boat operators and responders. They're supported by a trained group of police officers that there's always some on duty, every day, every shift. And then if we need, which we often do, the support of the fire department. For instance, if there's a medical out on the boat or whatever, they meet us at the town pier, they get underway, they go out and they deal with whatever it is, fire, they deal with it if it's a medical, they deal with it if it's, a lost vessel, whatever, or a loose vessel, they go out and deal with it. So it's a team response to these things. There simply isn't enough incidents to have a full-time dedicated patrol out on the water, for fire, medical, or police issues. There's probably more law enforcement needs out there on a daily basis than there are the other two, but there are needs. Where I think the town's missing out, and Paul would back me up on this one, I'm sure, it's not so much the boat problem or fires, those problems. Those are difficult, if impossible, to put out anyway. Most of the time, you're just gonna keep it from breaking loose and going and affecting other places. But we have a large wooden town and waterfront, and there's no real water side firefighting capability on the water. Okay, it's all comes from land. Now, those pumps we use on the boats for a boat fire are not going to be real useful if the yacht club's on fire or their facilities along the waterfront.
Be useless. They put out about 100 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
Coast Guard fully pumps.
Yeah, and and that's why a couple of years ago we put in for a grant funding, and we were rated the #1 in the New England. We should have got it, except for we forgot about one thing, and that was politics. Our proposal was to purchase a grant-funded, Homeland Security-funded moose boat that had the capability to, I don't remember what the gallons, just Paul would know, but to really put some water, onto a structure on the shore from the water. And, it made it through the local Massachusetts grant committee, made it through the New England grant committee, made it through the Northwest grant committee, which was a bigger one. It got to Washington D.C. to the Congressional Homeland Security Committee, which Keating's on, and the sheriff in Barnstable County got a patrol boat, which the sheriffs have no patrol responsibilities in Massachusetts. Can't figure it out. We forgot politics. So anyway, and so that fell apart. But that was the whole justification for that project, was to increase the water side firefighting capability for shore-based fires there. And it has other uses. I mean, we would certainly use it. Like I said, you can't spend $1 million and say you're just going to use it to put out shore-based fires, because the equipment will rot before you probably have to use it. But it has a lot of other uses that we could have used. And so we're continuing to look for that kind of thing, but they're not cheap. They're, we're talking $150,000 to replace our primary patrol boat in a couple of years. If we were talking about upgrading to that level, we'd be talking $1 million.
All right. As long as it's coordinated.
Of course, yeah.
We're going to jump to IT in just a second, but anyone have any other questions right now?
I just want to key
go
off,
ahead. No, go ahead.
because I think it's important to underscore the radio system, the new trunk, or the upgrade of the trunk system and the existing trunk system, really helps to facilitate the coordination beyond what, it's not just you pick up a radio and everybody tunes in. It's central dispatch station that can You know, you guys are working together through, you know, an incident command or whatever happens to come up, the level of severity. But the system allows you, correct me if I'm wrong, because I gotta be able to articulate this, but this system allows you to work through one dispatch, one command, interdepartmental and departmentally.
We can even, I mean, it's trumped so that, like, police calls are on police frequencies. There's 4 frequencies in the system. We all share those frequencies. It's just the radios are programmed so that if it's a police talk, you know, fire or DPW is not gonna receive it. But we can change that with just a programming push of a button to dispatch that will link, like police fire, or fire marine, or police DPW, or all of them together. And plus, there is a couple of town-wide channels that we can all go to now, and to just flip to it, and I can talk, and everybody that has this frequency can hear it, you know, so airport, you know, about the only ones that aren't on it, I think, are the NRTA, for the most part.
It works great for us. We couldn't do it either. It's pretty much 100% reliable.
Yep.
And if someone else came in, so if the FBI, CIA, anybody, other organization came in here, there's national frequencies attached to it that they can talk to us to. So
And we can, it doesn't matter what their frequencies are, we can hook into our dispatch center, we can just link to them. And through that big truck we have, we got a system in there that can link, doesn't matter, they can come in here with a marine radio, and we can link to it if we need to.
Richard, you have
Just a quick question on the feasibility study for Sconset,
yeah, I didn't talk about that. Want me to talk about that real quick?
real quick, yeah.
Okay. So, last year we started talking about a 4-year plan for service, and staffing. Part of that plan, laid out future deployments, seasonal, more than likely in Sconset, to reduce response times. Right now, it's at least a 10-minute drive from our central station to Sconset. We do about 60 calls a month out there in the summertime, about 30 in the winter. Long response times. We used to have call firefighters out there. We don't anymore. They all aged out of the system. So we have a nice station out there, but we have no personnel. So we think it makes sense to staff it, and that's part of our plan. For the next following fiscal year, we're looking at seasonal staff, and we could possibly put people out there. The station right now is not capable of probably not capable of a day shift out there, like 24-hour coverage out there. So we want to look at what we can do with that. We brought CPC out there and Nantucket Preservation, and they looked at the station and the building department, the building commissioner, and we believe that we can upgrade that facility without destroying its historical character, so that we could have 24-hour coverage, a community meeting space for the community in Sconset, a way to cover the 60 calls in the summer, and also the storms in the winter. So the winter, we can easily get cut off in Sconset, and now we'll have a place to put people out there to cover that in the island, both police and fire. So, I mean, I think right now, some of your community officers use that as a great place in the summertime, so it's a joint type operation. So we got quotes from Vertex and KBA, anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 for a feasibility study to come up with a set of plans for a new facility, feasibility for a new facility, and the cost to upgrade the facility. So that's what we're looking for.
Do we have to hire new people to do this, or is it gonna be existing staff that would be shuttled around in the summertime to be out there?
Great question. The 4-year plan laid out an increase of staff of 8 people. This year, we added 4. Next year, we're asking for 2, and the following year, 2 more. So a total of 8 staff over a 3-year period. To do the summer coverage, it'll be a seasonal type staff. So like the community police officers, we're looking to do a community fire EMT type operation. So that would supplement our staff, so we could cover the other ends of the island. So it would be part-time college kids, what it would be. Working side by side with our fire.
I was gonna say,
No, we wouldn't.
they don't even know where Wisconsin is. I got it. I used to have kids in the summer, but with people from here. Got it.
Yeah.
Comparable to like the police summer program.
That makes sense.
Right, yeah. I went to UMass Amherst, and we had a seasonal fire EMT program out there where I lived in the fire station for 4 years. They gave us a fire truck and an ambulance, and we ran alongside the full-time personnel. So we could do something similar, or we could even take their same staff. So their staff, their college kids could come to us in the summer and then go back there in the winter. So something like that.
You should have, just, I gave you my opinion last year of what you did. And did it anyway, which is nothing to do with me, I'm just saying. I would have somebody from Sconset, be part of this feasibility
Right.
concept and things. Just somebody, I don't exactly know who to use. I'm not saying Snooky's not the person, I'm just saying
He was
somebody.
involved in this too, he came up
Yeah.
to the station.
Yeah, I was assuming that,
Included
but-
every part of this, absolutely.
Somebody that knows, the historical side of all that stuff out there is complicated.
It is.
You know what I mean?
We had Michael May, he came out there with us,
Yeah.
and we'll include, Martha.
I don't know who to get. I'm just saying, there's somebody out there, they know who would be the person.
And,
Right.
Yes.
Paul went and spoke to the Wisconsin Civic Association.
I've spoken to the
Awesome.
Civic Association numerous times, and they're in support of this. I've talked to them about upgrading that station, so they also support it. We'll
Good.
give them-
Good, you
Part of
touched
the
the
process.
bases. Excellent.
Richard?
Just one last question. Are we asking CPC for funding for any or,
We haven't,
Some part of it.
we have some CPC funding right now that we're gonna use to do some maintenance on the station. But this, request is not from CPC, it's
okay.
just a capital request.
To do some maintenance on the Wisconsin station. is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Anything else? All right, we can move on to IT. Appreciate you being here.
We have two items
Yeah.
for next year on the list. The first one is for replacing our computers. We have about 150 computers throughout the town, and our goal is to rotate those out every 3 years. So they cost about 1,000 each, and that goes for 3 years. So as you'll see on the list, we have 50,000, we're asking for $50,000 every other year to rotate those out. The next item on the list is for the new GIS aerials, and I have Nathan here, who's a GIS expert. And he can go into more details about the GIS aerials, but basically we schedule the flyovers to take new images of Nantucket, pretty much every 4 years to keep the website up to date, and for all of the layers that Nathan does to be updated to be applied to the new pictures. So we originally estimated 300,000 for that every 4 years, but the most recent set of aerials that are being flew in 2014 came in a lot lower than that. I think it was around 150, 200, something like that.
Little less, about 150,000.
Right, so we're thinking that we can reduce 300,000 to about 200,000 and feel comfortable with that figure going forward.
Peter?
Linda, on the digital imaging, is there a clarity level that you pay for or do not pay for? Meaning, is the picture better if you pay more money for it?
Yes, but it's gotten to the point now, like, when we initially had the estimate for 300,000 done, it was right as the companies were switching from film cameras in the planes to digital. And so the resolution, the difference in price between resolution has really dropped almost nothing. So initially in 2003, 2007, the aerial photos we got were 6-inch resolution. The latest that we got done in 2013 was 3-inch resolution, which allows you to go from 2-foot contours and develop the photos down to 1-foot contours. And we paid, for the increased resolution, we paid half the price of what the previous set of photos were done on film at 6-inch. So the switch to digital has changed the cost of the aerials themselves, the cost of the data updates that are done, because no longer having somebody actually with a stereoscope looking at a picture and doing it on a light table, all on the computer now because of the digital format.
So are you using like an ARC GIS? So that if one of the chiefs wanted to know where a pickcock was or a fire hydrant, it's there and it's clear and it's all updated. Is that one of the layers?
Yes.
You can show sewer mains, water, spouts, everything.
Yep, a lot of
Whatever data you have that's collected from as-bills.
Right. A lot of the water and sewer stuff comes from DPW or Comet, because they're ideally, like every 5 years, 4 to 6 is the range that we're working with. So getting it done is absolutely necessary for getting all the stuff updated and making changes to the data.
So you feel comfortable with the software behind the photos? Are we using 30
Yeah.
layers right now?
Yeah, the base layers, I mean, again, it's, for a basic map, if somebody wanted, goes on the GIS website and does a locus map for an application or something, you've got the coast, generally, doesn't make much of a difference if you're off the coast, but it's still the base layer underneath it. The roads, driveways, center lines, parcels, which is not a planimetric off the arrow, but, so yeah, these are the base layers that change constantly, especially with the amount of construction and weather that we have and things like that. So it's, without keeping up with it, we're
So my,
getting out.
I guess my question or maybe my comment, our GIS, for those of us who don't utilize it, we utilize it even at the club. Any university, any town, any city has all of these layers built in, so you can go, where are all my electric outlets on my entire property? And you can go to that layer. It's just like using CAD versus a viewer. A viewer can give you absolutely minimal information. CAD can make you a little more. You can maintain what you have. And if we're going to the expense, I'd rather see, and I'm glad you mentioned we're going digital, I'd rather see us spend more money on taking what we need to facilitate, to get to, let's do some maintenance. Well, believe it or not, a lot of that system will have good data as long as the data that you're inputting is accurate too.
Right.
And getting any of our contracts that we as a town contract with outsourced people, that we make sure that they don't get paid until we get that data, and then we can take that data and input it into all of our systems. So we pay big money for that. That's like, finishing a job and not getting the as-built for this building. So when someone needs some information, they can't find it. It is incredible.
There needs to be a linkage.
Incredible.
Yeah, it should be a programmatic approach. If, when the imagery is updated, the base map is updated, the departments, I know the departments have a lot to do already, but they would be, inputting any updates they've had so that the system is rolled out, and maybe it's not the same day or even the same year, but it's on a set schedule so that it's always updated, because it is useful for all the departments.
Absolutely.
And it could be, there's a variety of good uses for it. I have a couple of questions, or maybe one. It's just a concept. The first question is Applied Geographics. Are they the town has worked with them in the past? I wasn't clear. Are they as the consultant or as the company that provided the aerial imagery of Nantucket?
They provide they're our consultants for project management. So they help us put together the RFP, they help us with vendor selection, and then they help us with the quality control checks with the data being turned into us.
Okay. And then the other question I have is the imagery that we receive as a result of this, is this licensed or is this ours? And the reason I ask is because, it's an expensive project, but more so it's a valuable product. And if it is something that whether we license it, the approach to the next suggestion would be different. If we license it, we would need capability under the license to resell, but if we own it, it seems like we might have some marketability with the large purveyors. Google and all these people are not, I know it may be a novel approach, but they're updating this information every 3 or 5 years, I think. And if we're giving them the latest and greatest, if it's $10,000, it's still $10,000. So I was just kind of curious, the ownership of the data, how does that work out? The ownership of the product?
Yeah, we own the imagery. It's produced for us. As far as marketing it out again,
No market?
I don't know about open record laws. Like the data that we produce itself, we cannot charge for. I have to, if someone requests a copy, we have to turn it over. So I don't know how that would work with the imagery. I mean, don't know where those large companies a lot of times get their imagery. I've actually had a couple of people come in recently because Google shows that a driveway on their property
Right.
is a road, so they're getting annoyed with people driving on it. And I'll go with my system, we show it as a driveway, and they say, well, how do I get Google to stop? Google doesn't like me, unfortunately. And I'd love it if they came to me and said they'd like a copy of the roads, because that would give us some access to, dealing with these kind of issues. But I'm not sure who gets, or companies like that get a lot of their data.
So it's a
Interesting.
creative, but probably not very practical approach.
Yeah, I think they might be getting some of their stuff at a statewide level, because Mass GIS will fly statewide aerial photos and do their own, they'll incorporate local data as much as they can, but a lot of times produce, some of their own stuff, which helps sort of cover the gaps in ours. So if they're off our schedule, we'll have our building outline done in 2007. They did some updated buildings in 2011, and then we did our next one in 2013, so we can sort of borrow their data as a gap, to cover that gap year or the gap in the middle. So I think a lot of the larger companies are actually going straight to, like state level stuff as opposed to individual towns.
Richard?
One last quick one. Linda, are there any town departments that your department doesn't provide IT services?
There are a couple. We don't provide services to a wastewater treatment plant. Also airport, the airport and school, we only provide access to units. The users there have to access professional software, but other than that, they have their own IT support staff. And then the police department has, Jen, supporting the police infrastructure.
Police, fire, and marine.
But we do support water company and food services, island home, nursing homes, plus all the other departments, DPW, town administration,
Town clerk?
town clerk, yes.
I'm done.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask, this doesn't have anything to do with them, are we skipping the other two things because there's nobody here? Oh, Lynell, sorry, I forgot.
Admin is, sorry.
No, I should have looked at you.
The IT's in the admin, part.
Right, so we're just going to skip that, and we're not going to talk about Children's Beach, right? Okay, thank you, just checking.
It's a bomb for a later day.
Yeah, hopefully I'm here for that meeting. Leave
So,
that out.
Linda, so you said possibly the 300,000 for 2018 could be reduced.
Never thinks of a 200,000 because,
Yeah. Could that be reflected in the, once you guys have an idea what that comes down to? I understand, but I see that there's a line item, or there's an item on 4 years out for 300,000. I can see that staying the same as a placeholder, but,
it probably should, yeah,
Yep.
because you never know what's going to
right.
happen.
That'll be good. All right.
Thank you, guys, this is
Yep.
important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
That's very helpful.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things we had planned on this year was the new tanker truck, came off the schedule. Last year, when we were talking to you, we asked permission to get military chassis.
Yes, I remember that,
I
yeah.
just want to let you know, you'll probably see them over the next month or two, two of them showing up. So it enabled us to pull a lot of, the utility vehicle and a brush breaker and a tanker off this year, so you can see how much less.
I'm sorry, this is brush breaker, and what was the other one? The pump?
There's two tanker trucks, we've got basically two for the price of one, a brush breaker, which is going out to bid in the next couple of weeks, and a utility vehicle replaced for Humvee. She's been in service, Humvee's been in service since the spring, but the other trucks are gonna start showing up, all built now, so we're seeing those on the road.
Has the Humvee been utilized pretty well? or-
Yeah, the day when the service, it was used out at that big brush fire we had. It's been used for the beach call, it's used for cardiac arrest on steps beach, to get the patient off the beach. It's been very useful, so.
Great. Excellent. Thanks, you guys appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, if you don't mind, we, want to talk about these next week? Is that all right? Just some of these
Yeah.
items, just to,
Yeah, yeah.
internally,
I'm gonna be gone next week.
do that next week.
I have that as well.
Ready? You are too?
I will not be here next week.
One, two, three.
I do.
Yeah,
Go
we'll
ahead.
go vacation.
Wednesdays.
Okay.
But those are those two items are part of what I was trying to say. They're bigger than just a budget thing. You know, like this decision about 20-some watt, it's a compensation. Like Phil talked about it for hours last year. And the Children's Beach thing, I know that's more of a administration issue, but I think that's also part of a larger conversation as well. So it's just my opinion about it. I don't know what we have in mind. I thought we were sort of done just talking about bathrooms down there. I don't know what the 500.
That's bathrooms, and that doesn't even cover the bathrooms.
Really?
It was 850.
Are they those modular ones we were talking about?
No, it's renovation.
Or is this just wood adding on?
Assuming that the price has gone down, it may not be the building that's there. I wouldn't know yet.
Okay.
Yep. All right, we'll meet next week. What's the item next week?
Water company, airport, and island homes.
All right, well, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.